G'day, film fans. I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and no Jeff, because this week he's a little bitch.
Yeah.
And welcome back to the love of cinema.
He's taking some leave. He's taking some leave. We're not sure what the charges are, but it involved a sheep and the outfit from American Horror Story Season 1. So we didn't ask questions. He'll be back soon.
Yeah, you know what? We're not even done with our fucking intros yet. But you know what, Jeff? This is for you, you little bitch. Just because I know you know exactly what that means. So fucking drink. Welcome, folks, to the love, that noise right there. Welcome to the Love of Cinema, a pod in which we challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right. And to keep us honest, we have made this a drinking game. You hear that sound. You're going to hear another one. If anyone says anything negative or stupid, you're going to hear this sound, which you've already heard, and the offender will drink. Mm-hmm. So we'll pour yourselves a glass and let's... it's happened. I've been waiting for this all year and it's happened.
Oh my God. Dave has been waiting for this all fucking year. We are going to be talking this week about the new release that is out on HBO Max and theaters nationwide, international, I believe, as well. I was looking at some China sales. This is the Suicide Squad, otherwise known as Suicide Squad 2, depending on where you're looking this up. But Dave, am I right? This is the Suicide Squad, not just Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad. It's a soft reboot of the series that does feature some characters from the first movie. But before we get into that, John, you want to do some shout-outs?
I do. We have a beer sponsor because we're a drinking podcast, and we usually drink beer, even though my co-host today is drinking bourbon and ginger because he's an insane person.
We're doing Catwoman later. I couldn't let the challenge go unanswered.
Oh my God! Yeah, tune in for a little later for this week when you can hear our episode on the 2004 release of Catwoman. Later on that, but for right now, our beer sponsor's name is Carlos Barroso. The handle on Instagram is CBarrozo Bar 2019. That is CBarrozobar 2019 if you want to give him a follow. And if you're digging that music at the beginning and end of this podcast, and every single episode of this podcast, it's provided by the artist Dasein, Dasein. Head on over to soundcloud.com/Dasein-artist, and you can download all that music for free. Just one more time, just because why not? You know what, Jeff, fuck you. You should probably just drink if you're listening to this. All right, Dave, I have been waiting for a very long time to talk with you. I'm sad Jeff's not here, but we're going to have a good time regardless. This movie has been highly anticipated by our co-host, Dave Green, and by everybody else, because there's a little bit of backstory before that. So not to pimp you out too much, but let's just fill in everyone as appropriate as you feel that to kind of give us the backstory for how James Gunn found his way to directing this one. What happened after the first one that led to this one?
A little bit controversial. A lot of things happened from the first one. John, I'll get you hit your all button one more time so that drink logo disappears.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. And a little few things happened. The first movie was already controversial because they basically the studio took over from the director David Ayer and re-edited 3 versions of the first movie. So the first movie that came out was not the film he released. It wasn't the film he made. So it was already, this thing was already controversial before it starts. Then James Gunn comes along, he's sitting there writing Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and some people who didn't like what he was saying about a certain person online found some comments from years ago when he was working with Troma. And of course he's working with Troma, he's doing horror films, he's trying to be a bit edgy, so he made some inappropriate jokes online.
The Troma films we talked about the Toxic Avenger not too long ago. So he was working with that team crew, for a while, right?
And and he basically they sent those to Disney and went, "Is this the kind of person you employ, really?" And Disney went, "Okay, we have to fire you," and they sacked him. So as soon as I think it was like within half an hour. It felt like within half an hour. Like DC's called, "Hey, you want to do Suicide Squad 2?" And he immediately moved over onto that. Coincidentally, as soon as the Disney-Fox merger was finished, they immediately hired James Gunn back for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So that it all worked out, yeah. But he went on to write and direct this film. I think he co-wrote it. He's been working on this for a couple of years. Of course, the pandemic hit, it got delayed, but this thing's been finished for a long time.
Has it really? I don't think I realized that it had been in the can for quite so long, because that probably happened. You're saying they were probably ready for a 2020 release date, like summer?
No, I wouldn't say 2020, but I think they were eyeing earlier on in the year, but then of course, it didn't go well, and everyone got a bit nervous. And I guess with James Gunn, that's as nervous as the execs could get, because I'm pretty sure he walked in and went, "I have final edit in this thing." Get final edit in your contracts, people. Trust me. If they'll give it to you, get it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that is the dream. Well, let's just catch people up just a little bit. So if anyone missed Suicide Squad, the first one, the first installment to what I guess is now turning into a series about the Suicide Squad, it's basically featuring all of the supervillains from the DC universe who are jailed, right? This is the premise of the big picture of the series. And every now and then the US government employs the services of these supervillains to try to do some very dangerous work that is basically suicide missions, trying to do impossible missions, and they just use these super villains to do that for them. So that's basically the gist of the first one. It's similar premise for this one, but I will just read the IMDb blurb. Here is the synopsis. Super villains Harley Quinn, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and a collection of nutty cons at Belle Reve Prison join the super secret, super shady Task Force X as they are dropped off at the remote enemy-infused island of Corto Maltese. Written and directed by James Gunn. Starring Margot Robbie, Idris Elba, John Cena, many other cameos.
Fucking person in the world.
Joel Kinnaman, shout out to Joel Kinnaman. That was fun. Michael Rooker. Yeah, there's
Nathan
a lot
Fillion's
of. We'll
in there for
just a little bit.
Nathan Fillion's in there
For just a second.
There's been a fun thing. You might have seen it on the Facebook group that we have, but his hometown of Edmonton changed their city hall to the Nathan Fillion Civilian Pavilion for the weekend. There's like a sign on it.
Up.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty fun. So anyway, as you can tell, this is very similar to the first Suicide Squad. This thing just jumps in and you are on the ride from the beginning. Now, Dave was telling me right before we started recording, he has now seen this how many times?
2.5. I'm halfway through the third watch.
2.5, third time. Did you go to the theater for any of those? Or are these all HBO at-home watches?
I did go to the theater in New York, and you know what? I know a lot of stuff's going on, and they're saying numbers are down for the film, and everyone's writing these articles about, numbers are down. Do you want to know why? And it's like, no, we fucking know why. It's like it's not safe to go to the theater at the moment, so a lot of people aren't going. So the numbers are down on it. But I did go to the theater, and I saw this in IMAX. Now, if you don't feel safe going to the theater, I'm not going to recommend you go to the theater. Absolutely not. But I will tell you, the IMAX of this is immersive as fuck. Like, you are in this thing. It's gigantic. It's huge. I sat in row H, and I was in it. It was obviously
it was filmed in IMAX.
It was shot on red. It was shot on red, configured for IMAX. The Monstro, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I didn't realize that. Well. That is so. Talk to me. You've seen it 2.5.
2.5. Yeah.
2.5. That is 1.5 more times than I've seen it. But I did see it last night, so it is still very fresh in my mind. Let me just start with the general. How'd you feel about this one? And I know we can't. We don't want to get too comparative, but it's kind of hard not to think about what they did with the first one, just because, like Dave said at the beginning. There were a lot of people who were really frustrated with the release of the first one. Yeah. Everyone knew that it kind of had a tough production. I think the version that they chose to release, I'm assuming this is Warner Brothers. They still own DC. A lot of people were really not underwhelmed, I will say, is probably the best word to use for that one. I think some people still had fun, and it opened up characters like Harley Quinn, and she got to make Birds of Prey, which was awesome. But I think as a whole, people were a little frustrated with that. So as highly anticipated as this one was, Dave Green, did it do it for you? Just give me your general opinion.
Fuck yes, it did it for me. This
is
amazing.
Congrats,
This is what we've been waiting for, in my opinion. Like this is the DC film where they didn't interfere with it. They brought in a person who's at the top of their game. He wrote and directed this thing. It's got all the fun one-liners you've come to expect from Marvel films, but they're a little more raw because this is R-rated. And it is. Yes, for sure. A Suicide Squad film. So, like, the ad campaign for this was the character posters with "Don't get attached" as the tagline. So when the kills do come, this guy used to work for Troma. Like, the kills come thick and fast and gory. Like, and he,
brutal,
he will go there with that aspect of it, and he has fun with it. It's the reason a lot of people watch slasher films is because, like, when you get to the kills, it's like, oh, that reaction. It's like, oh, that kill is spectacular, and it's kind of fun. It's almost in that respect. And the same thing is with this. Like when the accidents happen, or when they meet their demise, or any like all of these, because we start off with I think 15 different villains. And it's no spoiler.
We're not going to spoil anything.
It's no spoiler alert that not all that 15 villains make it through the fucking film.
Sure.
Some of them don't make it through the first 5 minutes, but But in this case, this was everything I wanted to see done in this type of film. It was like they.
And when you say that,
well, the first one just felt really hobbled.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember talking to you about that one. I think you used that word. I think we both said it was a little clunky. I remember feeling like, and again, folks, we're not just comparing it to the first one, but it's kind of hard not to, because this does. You said it really well. This is a gentle reboot. Was that the term you used?
It's a soft reboot. Yeah.
Yeah, a soft reboot.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I remember saying something to you about how I felt like the first one was leaning a lot on some editing choices and a lot on the needle drops, like soundtrack stuff, because I kind of felt like the story was clunky.
Well, that was one of the things he said in his statement this week. The director of the original, that when in his edit there was not a pop song in sight. There was none of that music.
Are you serious?
None of that music was there. It was a completely different film.
Wow. Do you think that's just because DC got kind of used to Zach? Help me out here. Justice League.
Yeah.
Watchmen.
Yeah, it was Snyder.
What's his last name?
Zack Snyder.
Yeah, Zack Snyder. Do you think they got kind of used to his flavor and his taste, and they wanted their universe to kind of feel that way? Because he loves the needle drops, and he uses them quite a bit in his movies.
This came out just after, I think it was Batman vs. Superman. Oh, this was in editing, in post, just around when Batman vs. Superman bombed. And the reactions for that were gratuitously negative, and everybody was making fun of it, and it was this. That's when the first one came out.
Yeah,
this one had to contend with a bloody pandemic, but they can't catch a break.
Yeah,
but this is a completely different film. This, like the other one, felt like it feels like it happens in a city block. In the like the original film, and it's small, it's concise, it tells a story. I didn't really like the story it told, but okay. And,
drink. Bourbon and ginger, folks. He's going for it.
But the this one is a world. It's not like it starts in the prison as it's meant to, and then it moves to like an entire island, and they bounce back and forwards. And there's like all these fantastic locations they've got. They change locations regularly. They're bouncing around with time a little bit. This one just felt bigger. And so because it felt bigger, the stakes felt bigger. And then, of course, when you get to the villain, which is one we've never seen on screen before, it just, like, they took this thing and just made it exactly as epic as it fucking should have been.
Nice, dude. Well, so I'm gonna push against just a little bit, not because I wanted to talk to you about this, because you and I have had this conversation. I know. Get ready for this. Get ready for this. My first mistake, and I'm not saying it's a mistake. I'm, again, just like Dave, I'm not going to tell anyone to go to a theater. I know this would have been more fun in a theater, though. Like, there's no doubt. I watched this on a television last night.
Because I've seen it on HBO Max and I've seen it in the theater, and
I totally believe you.
Yeah,
there's so much. Because what this movie does succeed in, which was kind of, I think, James Gunn's, is kind of his signature with this movie, is just how brutal the violence and the sound design of the violence and stuff is. So like if you're not sensitive to that stuff and you were looking forward to it, I watched this on a smaller television, probably 40 something inches, and a decent little speaker, but it wasn't immersive for sure. So that was one problem that maybe I was going up against. Big picture wise though, I will say this was one of those times that I felt like I was outside of the loop coming into this movie. I saw the first Suicide Squad, but that's really, and I saw Birds of Prey, but I don't really know much about these characters at all. I had never heard of any of these people except for Harley Quinn. Now, is that true for everybody?
He did that on purpose. Yeah, I had to look up Polka Dot Man. I had to look up Ratcatcher 2.
But these are like DC characters,
they're absolutely the DC characters. They changed Polka Dot Man's powers a little bit, but everything else they are actually all DC characters.
Okay, so I think what I kept consciously thinking about when I was watching this was the things that didn't work for me were all because it was related to what I would say is kind of a lack of a traditional story. Yes, Idris Elba's character does rise eventually to become our protagonist, but this movie felt very like serialized to me. It felt like an installment, like one of the comic books of Suicide Squad. It doesn't have to be related to the previous one or the one that might come after it. I think it's kind of cool from a production standpoint that DC is saying, like, you know what, let's give some directors we think are really talented a chance to just make their installment. So I was kind of conflicted. While I was appreciating that, the more traditional movie watcher in me that was kind of waiting to feel like I was invited into some kind of an emotional connection to these characters, which I know is maybe that's the problem. It's just paradoxical because you're not supposed to care about these people.
The poster literally says, "Don't get attached."
I know, but you know how with Game of Thrones, I'm not comparing this to Game of Thrones, but you know, a lot of people were like, wow, everybody's dying in Game of Thrones and don't get attached. But the reason that a story that does kill off characters like Game of Thrones was so powerful is because you couldn't help it but begin to care about these people. I never felt like I was supposed to care, and I think just as an experience, I struggled with that.
That might be because you were detached.
I don't know. Well, maybe because I was detached, but I don't know if anyone. I don't know. I think you may have to love superhero movies to enjoy this movie, and I think you'll know what I mean when I say that. Like, there are certain superhero movies that are so well told, and like the characters are so accessible. The story, literally, you know, the story that they're trying to put forward has some emotional attachment. There's something that's grounding it. So people who quote hate superhero movies, they kind of find themselves rooting for them. I don't know, because you're not supposed to be rooting really for anyone in this film. I don't know if you can. I don't know if it's going to be inviting to everybody.
I'll give you that. It is. I mean, also it's R-rated, so the audience is limited, but it is kind of a niche film. It's like you know, my other favorite film, Scott Pilgrim. Like that, Edgar Wright took this film and he went, I'm going to make it exactly like as much like the graphic novel as possible. I'm doing it in a stylized video game way. Fuck you if you don't get it. And I think
but I cared about Scott Pilgrim.
I think James Gunn's done a similar thing. Like, dude, I seriously, there were a lot of characters I found myself caring about that I didn't even know at the start. Ratcatcher 2, Polka Dot Man to some extent, and of course King Shark, who steals the show every time he's in it, pretty much.
Yeah,
and it's I found myself caring. I didn't so much care about the Idris Elba John Cena thing. But
don't you feel like that was I know what you mean. I think some of the supporting characters were a little touching, but the thing that I felt like was supposed to be our vehicle, like, was front and center. The John Cena's character and Idris Elba's character. I never really, it never transcended the action that was happening before me. I never got that feeling that I think an audience member is supposed to get, where they start to imagine how they got here and they're hoping for how it will resolve. And I kind of was just watching the whole time. Now, if you allow yourself to do that, I think James Gunn's trauma roots come through, and you're gonna have a blood splatter bath. You know, you're gonna see a bunch of crazy shit.
I will say, I was sitting in there in that IMAX theater, and every time one of those characters gets, like, there were a couple of them that, like, they're put in danger, and it looks like they're gonna buy it, and you're watching a fucking Suicide Squad movie. You don't know who's going to live, and I knew nothing about this going in. I managed to avoid all spoilers, so I had no idea, and I was like edge of my seat, like, is this person going to make it through the movie? Because I want to see more of this person. I had that in the theater sitting there, and so, like, when there was a couple of times where characters I did care about did buy it, and I was like, holy shit, that happened, and it did affect me. So I had a very different experience to what you had watching it.
Yeah, I know. I wish
everyone had wore their damn masks and got vaccinated.
I know. I wish I could have gone to the theater for sure. And maybe in a couple of weeks, if this thing is still in there, I'll try to go and give it another shot. I don't want it to sound like I really, like, hated it or anything. It wasn't that strong. I just didn't feel. I never felt like I just never connected with it. I couldn't quite tell. There were some weird comedic moments in there. And obviously, James Gunn. I think the. You know, the Guardians movies are funny. You know, I think he's got some, just like this too. He has a great cast in this. He had a great cast in that. He's not a stranger to kind of absurd superhero comedy where you got people doing comedic bits, physical and dialogue driven, while they're wearing superhero costumes. Like he's done that quite a bit. part of me did wonder if he kind of leaned into that a little bit more than maybe was necessary. We're going to switch roles here for a second, and you're the one who always tells me beware of the final cut, because sometimes I like people's stuff and you say it should be edited too much. I think James Gunn maybe needed somebody to edit his stuff a little bit. I don't know if the dialogue in this movie. Yeah, I don't know. I feel comfortable saying that.
No, I disagree with you entirely. I had a blast with every fucking one-liner. All the comedy that was just left hanging just that little bit too long to make it awkward. Normally, I don't even go for that, but like there's...
All right, dude, well then explain. Here's a spoiler, folks. Sorry, I'm not going to get too much into
we're going for spoilers. We're going for spoilers.
Dave, what the fuck was the point of that weasel, dude? Explain the weasel character to me. I don't understand why. That was a perfect example. And no offense, I'm gonna get highbrow for a second. The first parts of movies, we've said this a million times, are kind of teaching you like how to watch a movie. So obviously I was totally on board with like, great, everybody's gonna fucking die. I like that they put the twist on there. I like at the beginning that basically you think you're in one story and then everybody gets fucking murdered right in front of you in like the first 10 minutes. But there was a character at the beginning, this weasel character, that kind of gets a quite a bit of the spotlight, considering what he ends up doing for the service of the quote story, and for his part of the movie, and then it kind of comes back at the end. And I don't know, I just couldn't. Did that land for you? Did you think it was funny? And you thought it was great when it called back?
I pissed myself at that. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, yeah.
And the callback I saw coming a mile away, because they kept cutting back to him, and I'm like, at some point that thing's gonna get up, like, but it's gonna be like
for sure.
up, yeah. And but no, that scene, it's like, did anybody check if he could swim? And he's just there on the monitor, fucking flailing around.
That was okay. That was pretty fun. All right, but that's kind of exactly what I'm talking about.
But that's the thing as well. Like you're expecting that. That's like subverting your expectations, because you're expecting these big kills and like all hell to break loose on the beach. And it's like what Deadpool 2 did with Task Force X. It's like one of them doesn't even make it from the get-go.
Yeah.
Incidentally, if anyone asks you to join any team with an X in the name, just fucking run.
Yeah, you should probably get the fuck out of there. Although I do think that X-Force 2, I was laughing hysterically, and I feel like that was universally celebrated. I think that was a funnier version than this.
Oh,
but let's take exactly what you were talking
hilarious.
about. When he is drowning, when this weasel character falls in the water, and it is at the beginning of the movie, you're still kind of figuring out what the hell you're watching. I laughed at that moment, but then it goes into this like very drawn out like life-saving routine where they try to one of the characters goes down and gets him, and they announce that he's dead, and they like take their time with it. And I don't know, that was one of those moments where I could see myself. Folks, I've been in this position before. I'm not trying to sound like an asshole. Where you think like, no, I think it's kind of weird. It throws you off. It's unpredictable. And I'm sitting there in the editing booth, and somebody looks at me and says, I really just don't know if it works or if it's necessary to do the thing you're trying to do. I feel like somebody didn't have the right to tell James Gunn that. And there were just a few moments like that in the movie. And unfortunately, I think, as we all know in movies, those tiny little things add up. And every time a tiny little thing happens, people get pulled away from it. So it wasn't that I was like angry. I just got a little confused about why certain things were happening sometimes, and I guess they were supposed to be funny.
I mean, the reason some of that went on so long is because for about the first 20 seconds of it, I was still fucking laughing. So I wasn't paying attention to what was going on the screen because I'm pissing myself laughing at what's just happened. And I laughed for a long time at that. Everything he did landed with me. This is exactly the kind of comedy I go and see these movies for. Like, and it's so good to see DC embracing that stuff. So I'd hate for them to shy away from that. But I don't think there was anything wrong with the editing in this. I think everything was well and truly in its place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like almost,
unfortunately, I don't agree.
The only thing I would say is maybe Harley's speech in the palace went on a little bit too long. Okay,
so can we? I do want to talk to you about that because that was a big picture question I had.
But that was her moment.
Superhero fans, DC fans. It was a little strange to me that the one character that I did feel like, okay, surely we're going to still be connected to her. Like, they've done a whole movie with her. Like, we got introduced to her through the other one, and she was kind of the only person that came out of there, like, really celebrated. Everyone was kind of excited to see what they were going to do with Harley Quinn. She made Birds of Prey, which I think was also, like, celebrated well enough for people to think, like, okay, she's a fixture now. You're going to be able to care about Harley just enough. Of course, she's still Harley Quinn.
She was,
so you're not supposed to necessarily be on her side.
She was one of the most requested characters to have a movie done featuring her. So
absolutely, and I totally understand that. When we got into this movie, I think it almost felt to me like James Gunn was saying, and it's not necessarily his fault. I don't know what the studio expected of this script and what they were trying to accomplish with this, but it did feel like they were splitting their interests so that, and I couldn't help but think about how they were doing it in the Marvel movies, like whenever, because Iron Man was first, and let's say Captain America, we got introduced to these characters individually, and then a few years later they made Avengers, and I couldn't help but think, how do they balance the status of certain characters when they're all in the group endeavors? Why did Robert Downey Jr. still seem like Iron Man with the same status of a character in context with the rest of the Avengers? And I'm not saying I have the specific answer, but I do know that I kept waiting for Harley to do that here, for them to give that to her.
I think they because of like her history and because she was a fixture, because that was one of the other things about the first Suicide Squad. They really leaned on her and Will Smith. Like they leaned on those two characters to get them through. In this one, everybody got their moment. He introduced you to all of these characters and he fleshed them out enough that you wanted to see their stories. You wanted to hear little back and forth. And for me, this worked. I loved that he spread it out. Everybody got a moment. Everybody got their story told. It wasn't just.
Can't you say that about the Marvel movies? But you still don't. I still feel like the equality is still shared in those movies. Yet you never lose the status. The relationships that you have to those individual superheroes in their movies, you still have in the group movies, the Avengers movies. And I felt like for this one, I honestly, dude, after watching Birds of Prey and thinking about the dialogue that she had in this one, it felt pretty trite compared to like what they showed us. That she, sure, to what they showed us, that not that what her character is capable of, but they worked pretty hard in Birds of Prey to try to kind of get us inside her weird, fucked up little psyche.
Yeah,
and I feel like they just gave us the fucked up part.
I'm not sure if this happens before or after Birds of Prey. I'm assuming it's after because they make mention of her being out of prison. Or back in prison again.
In the timeline. Yeah.
But for me, there was a moment of growth there with her character. They pulled her back to almost normal for a second when she meets the president, and they pull her back to almost normal. And I was like, when they're standing there having a conversation, and he's standing there by the window and he's rattling off all this stuff. I was waiting for a bullet to come through the window. Totally caught me by surprise.
Okay. So that, all right. Now, I did too. I will say that sequence leading up to it, like their fall in love montage, that didn't work for me at all. I thought that was crazy. I don't understand why they did that. I think they were setting up the joke, and I did get excited when she finally. Spoiler alert, folks, if you haven't turned off yet. When she finally shoots him, I was like, "Whoa, okay, here we go." And I was excited. I was like, "Finally, we're going to get into Harley's POV a little bit more. Her point of view is going to come through, and maybe we're going to see, two stories. One is going to be Idris's and one is going to be hers." And I felt like the fight scene was incredible. Like when she walked away out of that room and she killed everybody. Yes. It was very violent, but it was fucking awesome, dude. That was probably my favorite part of the movie. It was her fight sequence. It was really great. But again, I couldn't help but think, as great as this fight sequence is, I was a little let down that my favorite part of Harley Quinn's journey was her not talking and acting. It was just her kicking ass. I felt like they had an opportunity to get into her point of view, and they consistently diminished it. Every time I thought I was getting close, they kind of pulled back and tried to just make it she's one of the team. But she's not one of the team, dude. She's Harley Quinn. Yeah. I have a relationship with her, as an audience member. So that I don't know if that one worked very well for me. What did you think, though, about John Cena? Because that did kind of surprise me that his character ended up, I'm not gonna lie, I thought he was just gonna be the muscle-bound dude on the side and have some funny one-liners.
He has a couple of really good moments for me, like that whole pissing contest in the village when they're just taking out the rebels. Like
that was fun.
Yeah,
that was fun. And that apology was really good.
Yeah.
That was funny, dude.
But like there's one moment from him right near the end where they're fighting over the drive.
Yeah.
And like he ends up like, we're well and truly in spoiler territory at this point.
Yeah, folks, sign the fuck off. We're going to tell you the end of this movie.
So he basically ends up killing a member of the team. And there's this moment on his face where you see this realization of like what he's done, what he's become, and it was it was more internal character than I ever expected to see out of John Cena, which is amazing. I found the rest of his character okay. What I'm more excited about is the series that he's now got out of this, basically. So
what? I didn't know that.
Oh, okay, yeah. Basically, if did you watch the end credit scene?
Yeah, I did. So this is the character Peacemaker.
Peacemaker, yes. Character. Peacemaker, they've already shot an entire season of television.
What?
His own TV show coming out on HBO Max, and those guys in the team that were in Amanda Waller's team are now teamed with him as punishment. And I was actually hoping that they were in that series because I could see more of those guys. They were fun. Like they didn't do much, but they were there literally to set up them working with Peacemaker later, because that's a TV. So now we're going to get a TV series out of it with Peacemaker.
Well, that is fun. And what you were saying about how it kind of surprised you, I did enjoy that, and I did get surprised, and I got excited because I thought like, okay, that's what this is going to be. And I'm not trying to sound like I need to understand it to enjoy it. I don't want to understand everything. That's never fun. But that surprise, the unpredictable thing, the turn with what they were doing to give us a little bit more of John Cena's point of view. One, it created a lot of conflict, which was fun because you get introduced to him. That great line, I'll kill every woman. I'll kill as many women, children, and men as I need to for peace, or whatever that line is.
Yeah,
I mean, it just tells you exactly
that. And if I had to eat a whole bag of dicks for liberty, if this beach was covered in dicks, I'd eat them all.
You don't have. Why do you have to eat a bag of dicks? Yeah. It was very funny. But so I enjoyed the turn, and I thought that I was like, okay, I guess from an outside perspective, again, someone who doesn't really understand why they're making Suicide Squad movies, outside of just the fun. The killing, which is a given. You want that treasure. You want that third rail, that other element that's going to make people actually want to rewatch these movies for a reason other than that. And I thought that they were going to start fucking with, which they did with Idris Elba's character a little bit. I'm not a good person. Like, how do you make these classically terrible, villains have to feel really conflicted about doing something that is actually emotionally relevant? Or morally or ethically relevant. And I felt like they started to do that with him. I enjoyed that. I just wanted them to mess with their other lead characters a little bit more in that regard. So I didn't feel like I was only watching like the killing sequences and then jokes. This movie did eventually kind of turn into where I felt like I was watching those two sequences over and over again. And again, if that's all they were going for, then that's absolutely fine.
There was more in there. It just didn't land for you.
I guess it just didn't land.
Like almost everything Ratcatcher 2 does, and she was amazing. I really enjoyed her work and what she brought to this character. But all the stuff like where she's telling the story of her father, who I didn't even notice was Taika Waititi.
Until the end.
When you see him face on, it's like, oh, yeah. And
like, why is he in this movie?
Yeah, because he comes up in the credits, and you're like, where is he? What was he wearing? But I found her entire, like they have described her as the heart of the film. Peter Capaldi is the thinker. I thought was fucking brilliant. He played that like there was never any alternative for that character. Because that is the most arsehole-ish I've ever seen that character played, and they've done a couple of incarnations of him. The Flash on TV did one as well.
I liked him.
He was fucking brilliant at it. He just nailed it.
I do think I kept feeling like there were, and again I did I smiled at some of the funny moments. I enjoyed the killing sequences. Some of the fight stuff was really fun. I enjoyed the unpredictability of some of the structure, but I did think overall, I think James Gunn was trying to have a lot of like tongue-in-cheek fun with the superhero structure and the superhero tropes. And like when Ratcatcher, when she like out of fucking nowhere, somebody asked her a question and they montage her childhood of how she, with like a very emotional, forced kind of like, this is my story. I think they could have gone even further with that kind of stuff. Like make it ridiculous. Because I feel like sometimes it was sitting on the edge for me and I couldn't quite tell if superhero fans were excited to see that kind of thing, or like in a good slasher movie, like you compared earlier, do really, in the really cheesy slasher movie moments, do all the slasher movie fans go like, this is fucking ridiculous, I love it. I couldn't tell if the superhero fans in this one were saying, oh, that's so ridiculous. What a forced way to sneak in her expository narrative.
No, to me, that endeared me the character. I didn't find that forced at all. I don't know where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was perfect for her character.
Yeah, I mean, it just like, I did feel like it was a little forced. And I thought it was supposed to be a little comedic, which was okay.
What, her dad with the heroin was funny?
just that, I think literally they ask her, like, how do you connect rats? And she, like, gives a monologue.
Yeah.
Like, immediately, like it doesn't get into it. And then, like, in the background of the shot, you see her, like, reliving this, like, in that kind of flashbacky way. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't think it. It just didn't feel like it was all in the same film for me, and I just wasn't quite sure if this was exactly the film that everybody wanted to make. I think James Gunn wrote a script that when you were sitting down around a table, I bet you can see like this is going to be a really funny fucking movie. And I think sometimes the editing and the pacing and some of the structure stuff just got a little strange for me. And I like strange. It just wasn't the strange that I didn't really respond to.
So if you're a fan of the show and you like the movies that I liked, you're going to love this. Is the takeaway.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm not gonna lie. I was sitting there last night and I was like, I cannot wait to hear if Dave liked this movie a lot.
I really
or
did.
If he felt
I will be watching this continuously for quite some time. One thing I have to bring up, because obviously the main villain is Starro, which is a giant starfish, which is just ridiculous to begin with. But like, this is the first time I've used him on screen. It was suitably enormous. And then you've got the Starro spores, which this thing fires out that take over people. It basically latches onto them like an alien facehugger, and they become a part of Starro's consciousness.
Yeah.
When it launched those things and they started getting people, the fucking wet smack as it hits the face. So I'm just like,
good sound effect.
I'm like, oh, that sounds like it hurts, and it should. This thing's hitting you at velocity. It was just that one thing I really noticed. I was like, that sounds like it was fucking painful.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I really appreciate like that in the sound of it, because also our fucking IMAX was cranked.
Oh, I'm sure, dude.
Yeah.
And also because of the story element where whoever this villain, whoever gets these little things on their faces, become part of him. So it attaches to all these people.
One of us.
So because of that, there's a lot of great like bad extra acting, like people with stars on their face, like yelling lines like this and stuff, which is funny. I did enjoy that. That was very Trauma. The way that they were directing like the extra scenes, and it was very silly. It was, kind of ridiculous, and you're supposed to laugh at that crap. And I think it was not supposed to be scary. And I did really enjoy that. I thought that was fun.
Yeah. So all in all, I feel like it was a fun movie. He has apparently been offered another DC film after this one, so I'm very interested to see what that is. I know you and I don't, we're not at their level, but is that surprising to you that they're willing to share directors like that? I
mean, they Disney, Fox, and DC, Warner Brothers.
I mean, he's not under an exclusive contract, so like,
but nonetheless, just like aesthetically, like I'm a little surprised by that. I'm impressed in a good way. I think that's cool that they're willing to let somebody go back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have any choice really, unless they lock him in for like a production deal, in which case they have to pay him a shitload more money to keep him.
He's the first one to do it, though, right?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, also, they did sack him for almost no reason.
That's true.
Because it was like 10-year-old tweets that would like, he was like, yeah, I was being an idiot. Yeah.
You're not allowed to be a funny idiot anymore.
Yeah.
Or just an idiot or yeah.
No, you're not allowed to be. You're not allowed to be funny on Twitter and have a a political opinion.
No. Don't even
those
try
two
to be
things
that
don't mix.
You can't fucking do that.
No layers. We're not onions, people.
Well, fuck me and fuck my stuff. That if I didn't really get it, I was still very excited that he got hired to do this. I think it's really cool that these superhero movies, whenever they're taking chances on auteur style storytelling, I think that might be one of the ways that it could be a very fresh take. We have celebrated the Marvel franchise before on this for how it feels like it is one cohesive vision.
Yeah.
I think it's fun that they're starting to step away and do more auteur style stuff, and I think DC is obviously doing something similar.
And
so
I'm glad that we finally get to celebrate a DC movie on here.
Yeah. Well, our Corona franchise face-off, the last-minute entries of the Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy. I mean, those are
True.
those are DC, right? We're still going to
Yeah.
celebrate. Those are.
Yeah.
That's the bar. That's the bar for the DC stuff. But it's fun to see something like this that goes completely the other way. This is not down and dirty, gritty Nolan realism, right? This is fucking. And there's an entire conversation about a supervillain eating a bag of dicks for liberty, to preserve liberty. Like a beach full of dicks.
And just because they didn't need it, not a Joker in sight.
I was going to ask you about that. Were there any internet things where people pissed off about that? I'm not gonna lie, I did keep waiting. I was like, who the fuck is playing Joker in this one?
All I've heard is people glowing about this thing. I haven't actually seen anything bad about it. But but again, yeah, it's like Joker. Like he doesn't need to be there. Like they've basically separated themselves from Joker now. And if it's going to come along, it's going to be something independent. I think he's not going to be a member of Task Force X. He's not it'll be traditional Batman versus Joker or something to that effect.
Yeah, I would imagine they're probably holding back on that character because I think you and I are both, and I think a lot of people are very excited for the Robert Pattinson. Reboots and hopefully a new series of Batman movies, and I'm sure at some point they're going to want to cast a fresh face for Joker and really let him go to town with a whole new approach to the character. So I was happy that, I'm not gonna lie, there was a part of me that thought at the end of this movie when this Starro is fucking kaijuing around this island, destroying buildings, I kind of thought Joker was going to come out of fucking nowhere and just like torch him or drop some chemical weapon on him or something crazy. And I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, no, this did not do Joker. The team was strong enough in itself.
It was really, again, we're in the spoiler section, folks. It was really beautiful the way cinematically the way they brought down this villain, the way they filmed the inside of his eye, and Harley busts through, and the rats. It's ridiculous, you gotta just watch it with a smile on your face. But there is beauty to that absurdity.
That one was definitely for the fans.
I mean, I was like, there was a catharsis there for sure. It's gross and beautiful and absurd and ridiculous all at the same time. So, again, don't feel pressure to go see this in the theater, but it sounds like that's probably the way to watch this movie. So if you have your home theater system, crank up that 5.1, that 7.1, and fucking get in there.
If you're in a place where it's safe to do so, and I mean safe, don't take any chances. I'm not going to suggest anyone risk their health for a damn movie, but IMAX was phenomenal with this. So like if they do a re-release, which I really hope they do, see it then in IMAX. Even if you've seen it on HBO Max, see it in IMAX.
And maybe I'm not going to. You tell me. I would imagine at most places, IMAX and Dolby are probably going to have less people in the theater just because.
Oh yeah,
they're bigger theaters and they're more expensive tickets.
In New York, the night ones were pretty packed, but the 11 a.m. Not only is it cheaper, but nobody's getting up that early to go to a movie, so you can sneak in. And you usually get it especially in the Dolby one. We get seats to ourselves all the time.
Oh man. Well, I don't want to say I was negative, but I was very critical. So I'm just gonna buzz myself for this whole movie. I am so thankful though that you had a good time, and I want people to see these movies. I want people to start supporting, everybody getting back into movies again. I feel like we took a year off. I'm excited for James Gunn. I hope he keeps directing. I really like what he does. So yeah, man, this was fun. We are going to transition into what we always do at the end of these fucking things. We're going to talk about what you've been watching. If there's anything we want to recommend to the viewers out there, if you're fucking bored at home with the Delta swirling around,
if they've sent you home again.
Jesus Christ, yeah. If you're just sending yourself home and you want to have something fun. I have been on fucking moving series all over the country. I'm finally got resettled in LA. I'm so excited to be here, excited to start school. But because of that, I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch too much stuff. But I will say, before I ask you, Dave, I watched The Ring the other night, which I hadn't seen in a while.
As in the first up. American one, or Ringu?
Not the Japanese one. The Gore Levinsky with Naomi Watts. That was still held up. Man. I had fun time. We were scared. Good time. If you were looking for good horror movies from the early 2000s. How about you? Have you been watching anything fun?
Yeah, I got two good ones this week. I finally saw Mandy. Got my Nick Cage on and watched Mandy.
Yeah.
I really don't get what a lot of the fuss was about. I was bored for a lot of it.
There are, dude, I kind of felt the same way. I'm gonna buzz you. Yeah, I'm gonna buzz you too, just because why not? I saw that movie with a lot of excitement and anticipation because everybody was fucking raving about it. Like the horror movie friends that we have, everybody was talking so much about it. There are some really beautiful moments and really cool, powerful moments. But I will say, as a film, I was a little bit like, I don't know, like it went back to the story thing for me. So I think I agree with you. I'm not sure if it landed.
Actually happens in that movie.
It really does kind of feel that way. It kind of sets up this event, and then the event sort of happens, and I don't know if that was enough for me either. So I'm glad you agree. See, Dave and I agree.
Yeah, it happens rarely, but we drink for agreeing. And I also finally caught Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Dude, I haven't seen it yet. How much fun was it?
It is so much. Like, there's one or two bits that are a little cheesy, but nah, it's great. Like if you
nothing a couple beers and a joint won't fix as long as I'm in the right place to watch a Bill and Ted movie.
Yeah, and like if you liked like Bogus Journey, this is the movie for you.
Exactly.
They get all the homages in there. They should. It gets a little weird, but yeah, it's weird seeing Keanu do that character at this age. That took some getting used to.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was worried about. Was the trap there? Did you feel like the old guy? He's not old, but the older man is doing, kind of recreating the younger character.
No, actually, because he's the one that's having the maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore kind of crisis. Okay, good. So whereas it's like Bill is like, we're gonna keep doing this, but I gotta
say, I'm a huge Keanu fan.
Yeah, it's great. I had fun. I chuckled a lot of times, and some of the throwback cameos are amazing. Like,
where was it, dude? Where did you see that?
That was oh god, where was that?
To put you on the spot.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But that is streaming somewhere.
It is streaming now.
One of
yes,
our services?
it is.
Okay, streaming. Yeah. So check it out. I think I saw The Ring on Netflix. One series I'm very excited to watch, and then we'll get off of here, is that new 3-part documentary series on Obama. Not saying, not to be political, but it looked very well done. It's on HBO Max. I'm kind of excited to watch that.
I've been hearing good things about Val. I haven't seen it, but I've been hearing he apparently got some really interesting behind the scenes footage on Dr. Moreau. That shows absolute chaos.
Yeah. There are like legends about his footage on that set before this movie ever came out. This exciting documentary about Val Kilmer we're talking about all the footage. This is all footage that he took himself. So I definitely want to check that one out, dude. Good call. Thank you for recommending that and reminding us.
Yeah, I recommended having seen it, but I haven't seen it.
I am excited though. I think it did well in the festival circuit.
Yeah, cool.
So that was fucking The Suicide Squad. Go check it out if you feel safe and comfortable. It is in theaters. If not, stay home, watch it safely on HBO Max. Warner Brothers has the releases coming out straight to the streaming service all year, so we're definitely recommending that if you want to do that instead. We are going to take a quick piss break and get another beer or 2 or 3 because we are about to record our next episode, which will be released on, I think it's on Thursday, for Catwoman, Halle Berry's Catwoman. So if you want to join us later in the week, you will hear us quite toasty because
we're going to debate.
Well,
was it really that bad?
Thank you so much, film fans. We will see you later.